Hello and welcome to our fifth episode of Two Mums Talking After Road Death. I'm Mandy Garner and I'm here with Yvonne Bruce.
Hello.
Hi, Yvonne. And today's episode, we're going to be tackling the thorny issue of the justice system, which is one of those things is one of those things that's kind of characteristic of road death, although a lot of people don't even get to very far with the justice system. I know I've been to lots of different meetings with people, but we've both had very different experiences with the justice system
Yes.
in different parts. We had the criminal justice system that we went to the Old Bailey, and you had your run-ins with the coroner's court
Experience.
Yeah. So we're going to start probably with the
Police. I suppose like the next, because the police came. We had the detective inspector came the following day and just basically ran through, because he had looked at the CCTV, he had run through what he thought had happened. And that was quite difficult just to even take that in.
Yeah, you're not really,
because we're still in shock. And I think at the time he had told us that the family liaison officer, we would be appointed a family liaison officer, and the family liaison officer would make contact and come the following day. But yeah, so the police at the very beginning were just running through what they'd seen on CCTV, and because there was a CCTV at one of the houses, and which they had a pretty good view of. So
immediately they were telling you all of this stuff.
Yes, and that's what we found really difficult, because obviously with what had happened to Jack, was that he was cycling on the road and had come off the road to go onto the pavement, because at that particular time there was a heavy traffic, and it was just before he was crossing the road on his bike that the dust lorry had turned and hit him directly. And I remember keep saying to the police, how on earth could that have happened? Have you obviously been to the road? Was the driver breathalyzed? Was they speeding? Because we just couldn't get our head, because we know the road, and we just couldn't get our head around the fact that it had actually happened. And I did think quite early on that the police had made a very rash decision, that it was there was a lot of blame on Jack, because he was on his bike, he was cycling on the pavement, which he shouldn't have done. And the first incident was that he hadn't stopped, he hadn't looked. They mentioned a lot about that Jack had his earpods in, which at the time Apple didn't have their noise cancelling. And but we kept saying to him, can you tell us on the CCTV, because we didn't want to look at it. Was Jack braking? Did he look like he was braking? Are you telling us that he just cycled across? Because it was just so unlike Jack. He wasn't, we were a cycling family, so he was very respectful of the roads. And the only reason that we could ever imagine that he would have gone on the pavement was because it wasn't safe for him to stay on the road. And you see cyclists all the time. He wasn't an oik, and that's what I was desperate to get across, that Jack wasn't a disrespectful, irresponsible cyclist. He wasn't some of the cyclists that you see that are, the young kids that are in the road, and they've got crash hats on, and they're almost playing with the traffic, and being quite disrespectful of the law. Whereas Jack was in full cycling gear, with his clip-in shoes, he had his cycling hat on, he was on a road bike, and I remember thinking, was it something that the driver did that had led Jack to believe that it was safe to cross? Because again, Jack would never have just gone on the pavement and just cycled across the road without a care for his own safety and the safety of others. And it wasn't until quite late on that we realised that actually wasn't the case. So we then came to the conclusion that the driver had, made an assumption, a wrong assumption, that the driver there was no fault on the driver. He couldn't see that the driver had committed a road traffic offence, is what he said. And then it wasn't until later on that we kind of like realised that it wasn't as straight-laced as that, but we felt all along that that detective wasn't going to change his mind.
But they made their decision very quickly.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And that's not, you're in the early, then that's very early on to
Yeah.
be sort of casting blame. So, yeah. So it's very, very difficult if you're in this just in total shock. You just need somebody to give you a hug.
Yeah. And the thing is, we just wanted to know what had happened. It wasn't a blame game. Just wanted I just wanted people to do their job. Somebody died. And that's one of the things that I found really hard was, and I know you have as well, Mandy, is that you get this impression that the dead don't matter.
Yes, that they've as soon the second that they're dead, they're nothing. They don't matter, that they're, in the eyes of the law. That's the thing that I found very, very difficult, because I go through, all the different sort of steps of the justice system. But it's I at one point we tried to take out civil action because we felt that the criminal court. Anyway, the criminal court was such a difficult sort of process. The driver didn't refuse to come to court twice and was sentenced in absentia. And we felt that it was all about him. Like the criminal case was basically all about him and nothing really much about Anisha. So we had been advised to look at civil action, but we got a friend sort of recommended somebody who then recommended a solicitor, and the solicitor, it turned out, didn't know anything about this kind of case, and he came back to us and he said, well, you could claim if she'd have broken her arm or her leg, but because she lost her life, the only thing you could claim would be for the 30 seconds of terror that she felt before she died, because the actual impact on the family is nothing. She is nothing.
Yeah.
She's just, but if she'd have broken her arm, but
And
she lost her whole life.
And that's how we felt as well. That and I think it was through you and confirmation from our solicitor when we eventually got one, was the same thing, that if Jack was alive, he would be able to give his story, but because he wasn't alive, he wasn't able to give his story. But I was so frustrated because I kept thinking, well, but you still need to put your you need to put yourself in their shoes and see what it could have been that they would have seen. Because I kept trying to say Jack was a good boy. He wasn't an oik. He wasn't one of these kids that just don't care. But about the family liaison officer, how did you feel? Because when did your family liaison officer come to you?
So the first thing we had was the Essex Police, who came in the middle of the night. Then a couple of hours later, we had the Metropolitan Police, because it happened in London. Their main concern seemed to be about the independent police inquiry, and we had to sign some papers. I just remember having to sign stuff.
It's very formal, very formal.
I'm just trying to take all of this in, I felt it was all about covering their backs to a degree, because the implication was that there was a possibility that it was a chase and that the police were implicated. And then they said that the family liaison officer would arrive that morning, but then they subsequently said, oh no, he's busy and he'll arrive later on in the day. So he came at the end of the day. And he was really nice.
Mm-hmm.
He was really nice, but didn't really know that much.
No.
That was the thing I didn't get. I was asking, questions about. That's why I was interested in what you said about them talking about the CCTV and stuff like that. We never got any of that. It was just I sort of said, did she die instantly?
Yes.
I was worried about her suffering and being on her. Well, she wasn't on her own. She had her boyfriend and friend there. But I just we didn't get any of that. They didn't seem to know anything much. And the family liaison officer, although he was lovely, he was very, very busy. They don't have enough staff. I mean, that's the same with every aspect of the criminal justice system. Is completely, absolutely bad for the fact that it's falling apart. There's backlogs everywhere. ours, it happened in the middle of COVID. There was total chaos. You couldn't get through to people at all.
Oh, of course,
Everything
again.
had to go through the family liaison officer. Any questions about the lawyers or the Old Bailey thing, everything had to go through the family liaison officer, and he was often on leave because he was working overtime in
And they
central
do different
field.
shifts, don't
Their
they?
shifts were,
Mm.
and you had to wait for ages. So it was all on basically on email. That's what I remember, and you just didn't hear anything. And at some point, I had a list of people to follow up with. And I just every week I would just try and follow up because it was COVID as well. You couldn't like directly have get in touch with anybody. You had to email, and then it always said like, allow a week or whatever it is
Oh,
for
my
a reply. So
goodness.
like the coroner or whatever, you had to wait for ages, and then they'd come back with an email which would
Yeah.
answer one part of your question, but not the other
Yes.
part. Then
Yeah.
you have to email again and wait another week until you got got a reply to that one. So yeah, I found that very frustrating. And because I didn't know anything about the how criminal justice system operates, really, didn't know that you weren't going to have any. The only time we actually had any interaction with the barrister and the solicitor was when we were actually at the Old Bailey. So then we talked to them, and and because he didn't turn up, the driver didn't turn up, we actually got like a couple of hours where we were waiting. We had to wait and to see if he understood that he had to be he had to be there to hear his sentence.
Oh,
So we had to wait and give him the benefit of the doubt that he, you know. So we then had time with the um,
did your family liaison officer come with you to the? Yeah, so they.
and the detective inspector.
So that's where mine slightly was different because we had it was a female family liaison officer, and again she was really, really lovely. She seemed to be quite knowledgeable. She was very empathetic, which I thought was a, a really strong point that they need to feel as if they know how you are doing. Um, but and she went through about collecting Jack's stuff, and because obviously he was on his bike, and where the lorry had gone over Jack, and they said that we can't release his bike to you because it is obviously in a bit of it's all broken. But they were really respectful because we wanted to have the bike back. So once they said, we'll have to do some work on it before we can give it back to you, and we will make sure that it's wrapped up really well, because we at some point Simon wants to um, repair it and have it as it was.
Yeah.
But they had said that there was certain obviously circumstances that that we might not want to look at the bike straight away, and so she was really respectful with that. She was really good with bringing Jack's stuff back, which was awful because it was in those horrible bags. The evidence bags that, again, I've never come across that before, and you only see that on the television.
Yeah.
And so I found that quite disturbing when she was opening up the evidence bags. And I don't know whether there's a better way to bring their personal belongings, but maybe it's because they have to open it in front of you so that if anything's missing, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
found that quite upsetting.
Every aspect of this
Yeah,
upsetting,
yeah,
really, isn't it?
yeah. But
I
it's
do
another.
remember. Yes, because I think it was a while before we got her things back. We got her bag and her phone, which we haven't been able to get into, and not much else. I don't think. I don't think they brought any of the clothes or shoes because, yeah, I saw the shoes on the road. I saw the pictures. They had the pictures
Oh,
up on the. You could see, if you search, you could see the pictures, and he obviously hit her so hard that she came out of her shoes. um, yeah, she loved it. And those shoes. She was so she just bought these shoes, these trainers with those like platform things. Yeah, but there was the bag, and there was the phone and everything that was in the bag, like her student card.
and that was the thing I was panicking about. I wanted Jack's phone, because they weren't able to get into it because it was damaged. But obviously there was everything about Jack was on his phone, his pictures,
Yes.
their correspondence with his friends, their WhatsApp groups.
They lived their whole lives on the
Yes.
phone.
And so I was, I was desperate to make sure that we had the phone back. So I guess in a way my experience with the family liaison office was a positive one, albeit that it then came to light that when we were going to the coroner's court and stuff like that, it then turned out that she wasn't privy to some of the information, and which led me to believe that, you know, the police that were uh, investigating Jack's collision, um, they were almost, there was a few of them that seemed to be coming together, and you know, and to not involve the family liaison officer, because she wasn't the one who told us about the coroner's court and any dates or anything. I ended up telling her, because the information hadn't been brought across by the detective inspector.
Did you have there was a family liaison officer, did you have them up until the coroner's court?
Yes,
And
and then we didn't hear there, and then there was nothing after that.
yeah, yeah, because we just had it for the Old Bailey and then
Yeah.
nothing really after.
And I don't know if that's probably standard, really, that
Yeah.
they're with you. But we were the same. Don't get me wrong. She did come back to us as soon as she could. We had quite a few personal visits where she came to the home, which was really, really good. But yeah, up until she didn't come to the coroner's court. But I can't remember where we got the solicitors. I'm not sure if it wouldn't have been through the police, or whether it was through Road Peace, because that was the next thing, because obviously they loosely spoke about the having to go to the coroner's court, and that's when you then go into another panic, thinking, oh my goodness, I've got to get a solicitor.
Yeah.
And I can't remember, I'm sure it must have come through Road Peace, because ours was Slater and Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
And they deal a lot with road peace, and they unfortunately, but fortunate for us, they deal a lot with road death. So Slater and Gordon we were lucky to get hold of them, and the solicitor that we had, he literally guided us the whole way through. And I remember saying to him, I want you to look at it, and you know, if we've got rose tinted spectacles and there wasn't any fault on the driver, then you know, we will have to accept that. But we just want to you know, find out what exactly happened. And he was so good. The moment he looked at the CCTV, he came straight back to us and agreed that actually it wasn't as you know, clear cut
Yeah.
as the police had first led to believe. And they then took off a whole barrage of, you know, meeting Kent police, speaking to we went with the Metropolitan Police. It was Kent and Essex Police that we had spoken to, and our solicitor kept saying, you know, we're with you. It's not as clear cut as it is. You know, the driver has definitely got a lot more to answer to.
It's so
And
important to have confidence in the solicitor that
oh
you
my
have.
goodness, that's your first one.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
so when we went for the civil case, it was only because in Break, the charity Break had suggested or said something about, you know, you should consider civil action. And Gustavo had sort of followed up on that. And then a friend of ours knew a barrister and he said he would do it pro bono. And then he put us in touch with this solicitor. The solicitor, turns out, didn't know anything about this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And in the end, we ended up paying, I think, £250 to the solicitor to find out nothing really. And I would have dropped it then, but I was so angry at the way that the driver and family were reacting that I then sort of Googled, and I found this other solicitors that specialised in road death in Liverpool, and they were brilliant. They were absolutely brilliant, and just really human, you know. And it's because it's a scary thing, taking legal action.
Yeah.
It's a scary thing. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. Are you going to end up losing because you can't prove, you know, because in the civil case, it seemed to be all about Anisha's value as a potential renter or babysitter. So it wasn't really about, I just don't think that the system works very well at all. I mean, it just doesn't consider, once a person is over 18, they're almost like and if they don't have family themselves. They don't have any dependents. They're kind of like in a kind of limbo land
Yeah.
legally. And I think it's because the law is based on, old, the idea that people leave home and get married.
Mm.
That doesn't happen. There's a very long period in between
Yeah.
nowadays.
Yeah.
And she was a student, so she wasn't independent because we were giving her money for her, you know, university. Then they're kind of, they're in a middle kind of nowhere land where they're legally
Of a
dead.
legal
They're
age,
nothing.
yeah,
They're nothing to
exactly.
anything.
Yeah, but they're not gonna
Almost don't
have
matter. And in fact, when the coroner wrote back, so we had this really bad situation with the coroner. So the coroner opened an inquest and automatically, and then a year passed, and then I thought, what's happened with that? Is it happening? Maybe it's happened and they haven't told us,
Yeah,
because at
yeah,
that
yeah.
point we weren't being told quite a lot of things, and it wouldn't have surprised me if things had slipped through and they'd done stuff, because we had other experiences of that.
So it wasn't automatic that you were told that you would go to you wouldn't be going to a coroner's court because yours had gone.
Yeah, well, it automatically, it was on the website and it said the inquest had been opened. But then nothing, we didn't hear anything. So we got in touch. I got in touch with the coroners through email. And then eventually it came back from the coroner saying, "Oh, I've looked and I've decided that I'm going to close the case because, as you may know, there has been a criminal case, and there's an independent police inquiry." And it was just that, as you may know, it just seemed to be like sum up what my experience was up to that.
Yeah.
They actually think that nobody cares about her. Literally, her family may know. They might not have bothered to know, because she just like lying on the side of a road. I just felt that they treated her like nothing. And that made me very, very angry. And I think the reason that they closed it was because they have such a backlog of cases, and they wouldn't probably have closed it for a while, because
No.
it was only because I contacted them and they were looking probably for.
But yet again, you're having to do something to kind of get information.
I queried it. I was like, but surely the inquest is to show what, if this could be prevented in some way. I know that there are, I looked up, accidents along that road. There's been some fatalities. There's been like a campaign, for road quietening measures and all that, that kind of stuff. And I just felt like he came down that sweep of Brixton Hill, driving on both sides of the road, right? And if you keep going down that road, you come to Brixton Tube Station.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a busy area.
Busy, yeah.
He killed Anisha. Her Rory, her boyfriend and his friend were right behind her. Could have easily taken them out as well. If he'd got further down to where the tube was, he could have taken out quite a lot of people. And I felt, surely this is it. It's not going to be greeted by silence, almost, by the justice system. But that's how I felt, because we had the criminal case, but even the blooming driver didn't turn up to that. We were,
my
we were
goodness,
there in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
It was just basically us and the lawyers and the judge. It was a bizarre. I mean, a part of it was COVID, obviously, but bizarre. I mean, there was nobody around, even around.
But we didn't even have COVID as an excuse, because when we went to, obviously we went to the coroner's court, and that was just a whole new experience, because it was the frustration of being told that there's a date, but then our solicitor, so then we had to get a barrister, which our solicitor took control of, thankfully. And then we had to, our solicitor had to write to the coroner to say, we need to defer this because they were only giving us 90 minutes. And the 90 minutes wouldn't have been enough. So then they said that they were going to have a pre-hearing, and then it was a months of, well, we're going to cancel that day, and we're going to give you another day. And there was no notice. There was times when the barrister said, "Oh, actually, I'm not going to be available." And I thought that there was no thought about us as being the minions, if you like, because we haven't got. We haven't won the lottery. We haven't got loads of money that we can kind of like call on barristers at a last minute, and yet we felt that the police and the council, which are public funded organisations, are the ones that they've got barristers on tap, seemingly. And we had the same where it was, we went to the coroner's court, and we had specifically said we wanted to go in person because there was no restrictions, nothing at all. And we turned up, and I was so upset that the coroner's clerk was fiddling around with a silly little video camera, and he only had one. He didn't have enough for all of us. And to be told that there was only one witness that was there in person, and the police and the council had decided that they were going to do theirs virtually.
Yeah.
And we hadn't been told that there was a choice. First of all, the very beginning, I think we earlier on in the year, we were told that it was going to be virtual, and we said absolutely no way. We want to be there in person because there is no reason why you should have it virtually. The High Court and the other courts up London, they were all back to normal. And to actually see them on the video link, I just thought was disrespectful of Jack.
Yeah.
Because they're not
That's
taking.
when I felt like the driver not coming to court was contempt.
Yes.
Absolute contempt for us and for Anisha. And he did ask to go on a link, I think, at the beginning. And he was actually the first day when we went for the sentencing, it was just for him to plead guilty, which he'd already said he was pleading guilty. But his lawyer didn't turn up for no apparent reason. And we saw him for like 30 seconds on a thing, and he refused to plead. And it was just sort of dragging it all out. And then he didn't turn up for the actual sentencing and the hearing. And that to me was the most important thing.
Yes.
Because I wanted to read my impact statement. Rory had written an impact statement, and he was suffering from PTSD and all sorts of things. But it was for Anisha. We wanted him to know who she was and what he had done.
Yes.
And I didn't want to just read it out in a vacuum.
Because you feel like you're not reading it to anybody and nobody's really listening.
Yes, exactly. And so I went through a whole process of restorative justice, which is another thing altogether. But because I wanted him to know who she was.
Yes.
And in the end, that didn't come to anything, and it was a complete waste of time. But yes, I think for me that was, if the justice system is about anything, is that the person has to take responsibility for what they've done. And by, being in your prison cell or just doing it, online, so you don't have to sort of face up to the people.
It's like, let's protect the guilty.
Yes, it's sort of it's a lack of taking responsibility.
Yeah.
And I felt that the whole criminal justice system, to a degree, was all about him, and everything was being done for him.
Yes.
And it made it worse. And how could it make it worse? I mean, it was already very, very bad.
Because again, you just want people to take their job seriously. You want people to recognise somebody died.
Yeah.
Do your job and just acknowledge the fact that a young person has died.
And this will affect
the blink of an eye.
Obviously, it affects. She doesn't get to live her life.
Exactly.
But we all don't get to live that life with her,
Yeah.
And so the impact is massive.
It's huge. And I think that's one of the things that they just don't realise, because I remember we have written to the coroner's court and put out a few things on there to say a few points. One of them, the biggest thing, was that there shouldn't be a virtual. They shouldn't be given the option to do it virtually, and also we were told from the very beginning the coroner's court isn't blame. It's not about blame. It's not a criminal court. But I remember one time the witness was given his account of what had happened, and the coroner had turned around and said, "Oh yes, because you pointed out that your wife's biggest bugbear is cyclists on the pavement." And it wasn't until afterwards that I thought, I wish I had stood up and said, hang on a minute, you're actually giving across a statement as if Jack is one of these annoying cyclists. And that's not the case. And you've gone against, and I remember putting it in the letter and saying, why did the coroner say that? Because he shouldn't have said something like that, because it's going against Jack's character. And again, Jack has died, so therefore he doesn't matter. And that was another pointer in that direction. And so we're yet to write back to them, but I made it clear in our letter that, these are just recommendations because we're hurting. We're in so much pain. And we
Yeah.
just need people to believe that we're in this much pain, understand that we're in this much pain, and get it. We understand people are really busy,
Yeah.
but just think about us, think about our children that have died in such awful circumstances. Just get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So there's so much more that we could probably
Yes.
say about
Oh,
the system. I've certainly had lots of different sort of elements of everything. Well, there was also the press reporting on it, which I've spoken about
yeah, we had
cases
that.
for a long time, for a lot, and just the fear also with the criminal with the civil case. It went on for so many years and it was sort of hanging over us. Is are they actually going to is are we going to lose? Are
Yes.
we going to lose? And we're going to have to pay all this money,
Yes.
because we can't prove 100% that she would have come back and lived with us and paid rent to us. So it's a kind of form of torture where you're having to imagine what she would have done.
Yes.
They force you to.
You're trying to live their life.
And, with everything that happened, COVID and, cost of living crisis and everything like that. I mean, nobody can know 100% anything these days. You
No.
just don't know.
I think the main thing is getting yourself a good solicitor, because that's one thing that we couldn't fault. Our solicitor was amazing. He held our hand and took charge, and still is, because we're still going through some bits the whole way through, and he made the process so much easier. And he did get it. He did get it. He got it. He said, this is a really hard case, and I'm invested, and that's what we needed.
Yeah. So next, for the next episode, we're going to talk about the support that we've had.
Yes.
And what organisations have helped us, and that kind of segues very well into that, because having advice on legal issues is absolutely crucial, because it's
It's something that
go into it.
Yeah,
Completely
we're not all
no
lawyers.
knowledge whatsoever. Thanks very much for now.
Thanks for listening.
Yes, thanks. Bye.
Bye.